Welcome back to the Coach Emery Show. I'm your host, Coach Emery, aka Emery McMillan, and today I have with me a super dope individual. Her name is Keosha Hinson, and she is one of the coolest people that I've met recently. She has a lot going on. She has a lot to say, and she has a lot of advice on things that she does and works with people and helps them better their lives. So she's in my realm of scope. So I like people like that. So I want her to introduce herself. So Keosha, introduce yourself to the people, and I'm gonna jump in with a bunch of questions like I always do.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Keosha. I am a certified life coach. I am also an author, self-published author. I am a mother. I am a wife, but most importantly, I am like you. So I'm from the hood, right? I grew up with a single Black mother who instilled all of the values in me to be a strong Black woman. And in my 40s, I am realizing that that's not who I want to be. So as I have uncovered who I want myself to be and kind of put aside those things that were implanted in me, I decided that a lot of women need to travel that path as well. We are so stuck on those paradigms and the programming that have been instilled in us from our communities that we don't realize that there's so much more for us. So I wanted to be that product of, I was a bad mom at one point, I wrote my book because my son did attempt suicide because it was some things that I missed as a young mother. And it took me being aware and actually saying, okay, I'm going to be real with myself about the things I need to solve because I want my son to live and not die. So I think that as mothers, Black mothers, specifically, we have a lot to learn and grow just so we can grow men better.
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, show's over, right? Wow, that's deep, man. First of all, congratulations to you for your accomplishments are great, those are amazing, but congratulations to you for finding out that you don't want to be who you've been, right? That's the biggest accomplishment a person can have, aside from actually changing that narrative. Finding out they don't want to be what they've been is the second best thing. So kudos to you for really understanding that that's not who you are. And that's not who you really want to be. That doesn't resonate with your spirit. And it's not, part of your story, right? It's part of your story, but it's not the story you want to, it's not how you want your story to, to be written out. So kudos to you for that. Definitely, my heart goes out to your son, and I'm glad that he did not succeed at that. We want our children to be successes at a lot of things, but not at that. So, I'm glad that he did not succeed at that. And you were able to intervene and step in and realize, hey, there's work for us to do together, right? And, a lot of times when someone goes through something, the work goes to that person. And you jumped in and like, nah, this is our work.
Yeah, for sure. Starts at the head. That. People, we blame things on children. We say children are bad and children don't listen, but I don't believe there's any bad children. I feel like there are emotionally led adults and parents who create children that don't know how to manage their emotions. So together, they're these two attractions that are nobody know how to manage their emotions, and they just creating cycles of it. So it takes work together for sure.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And I think that it's important that we all understand our role in our parenting. Just being fully transparent with you, I think you're not a real parent until you acknowledge that at some point you weren't a good parent. Either you were too nice, either you were too mean, you weren't there enough, you were there too much. Like you weren't what you needed to be at some point. And if you can't be a parent and acknowledge that you didn't have that phase. And it's interesting that you wrote a book because, and I'm gonna definitely dive into that book in a few minutes. I talk about my father and his lack of presence in my life in my book, right? But my book is a 3-part book, and the second part of my book is me repeating that cycle of, at the end of my book, I made this big proclamation about just, being different than my dad. And then the next book starts off and I'm like, my daughter called me 4 times and I ain't answered because I was doing something that I'd rather be doing in that moment. And I'm, 19, 20 years old. But, I'm glad that you acknowledge that you weren't always the best parent, because now it's like, okay, what does a good parent look like? Because now you can, if you don't ever acknowledge that, you can't ever find out what you want to be as a parent. So I definitely celebrate you for that as well. So I want to dive into the first couple of things you said. So you are a certified life coach. And kudos to you for doing the certification. A lot of people just jump in this industry and just say, oh, I'm a life coach. And But when you go through the certification, there are things you learn that you did not know were parameters to operate within. And I think that's the biggest thing I learned within the certification. So I want you to share with me something that you learned through certification that you didn't know prior to, doing this work.
So as far for me, I kind of never wanted to be a life coach, but when I was a social media manager for a little while. And so that kind of immersed me in this online space. And I started to realize how many people were like making money just off of the things they knew. And I was like, be a life coach. But then when I started to really dive into and see the problems that people struggle with, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, maybe I'm not really equipped to help these people. And so I wanted to do something more than me just having a conversation with you about my experience. And when I enrolled in my life coaching certificate, it's a little bit different because I was one of the only African-American people in this coaching certification because it talks more about the subconscious mind. So I do more techniques on the subconscious mind. I do hypnosis and I help you with to kind of how you encode your memories and things like that. I wanted to be different than other people in the industry because I feel like I could tell you to do something all day, but we don't realize most of us just communicate wrong with our brain. And that's why we can't get anywhere.
Right.
So in my certification, I learned how to help people, but I learned more about me. One of the things that was required was we had to role play. So every technique that I learned, someone had to do it on me.
Yes.
And so that helped me to understand how my clients will process it, how it will feel to them. But it also helped me to understand how I'm processing things in my brain, how sometimes I may think I'm not judging and I am, how sometimes I need to give people a little bit more grace. So my certification taught me more about me so that I can help more women. So it was definitely necessary. And I think that it was the best money I ever spent. And it makes me think, like a lot of people say, well, you don't have to pay for, coaching. You can get it on YouTube. You can. But for me, when I think about the $6,000 I invested, I think about that's empowering to me because I took the time to invest in my craft so I can better someone else. That's power for me, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you shared those points from the certification because those are some of the things that I didn't understand when I was doing this work, because I've been a mentor for over 15 years. I've been a person that people call to help with their problems for a super long time as well. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And somebody was like, that the work you're doing is kind of like life coaching, right? I'm like, nah, I just like helping people. They're like, no, it's business, it's a business. So somebody put me on, they're like, yo, this is the business, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all right, cool, fine, this is great and all, but how do I put myself out there as someone who knows what I'm talking about? Like people who come to me I know what I'm talking about, but strangers don't know this.
Right.
And so everybody was like, oh, you don't got to get a certification. You've already been doing this work. But I'm like, nah, I feel like I need to know what I need to know about this industry. And when I jumped in and did my certification, some of the same things you said are exactly what stuck out to me, right? Especially with the NLP certification and hypnosis certification. I've done those as well. So we go places people just can't go in conversation, right? And it's with intention. And a lot of times people talk about therapy, and even sometimes in therapy can't go to some of the places that we can go. And it's not that we're better or worse than them, but there's certain things that we can go and do with the client's permission that will allow the client to help heal themselves from a space they were stuck in. So, I love the fact that there's so many dynamics to this thing. And you mentioned a lot of them. One of the biggest ones you mentioned is that you had to do the work on yourself first. And that part was tough for me because I'm used to being the one giving the advice. I'm used to being the one that's able to help somebody through something. And so having somebody dissect me that wasn't a therapist, I'm like, yo, wait a minute. Okay. All right. I like the way you did that. And I took some pointers from other people in my training as well. So I'm grateful that you shared that experience. And one of my questions that I have about that is, right now, what would you recommend that all life coaches or all people who are in the healing space do some kind of certification?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm not talking about no Udemy. I mean, I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with Udemy, but I strongly feel like before I started as a life coach, I didn't realize that the brains of people work the way they do.
Right.
And it's like, if I didn't have the tools, I wouldn't be able to help some of the women through some of the things I do. And some of the stuff is heavy. And some of the stuff is stuff I've never even met anyone that's experienced it. And I'm like, how are you dealing with this?
Right.
But the life coaching, my certification has taught me that problems are problems, right? It doesn't matter how big they are or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's how you are seeing them in your head. And so it's not about, oh my God, her problem is so big and mine is so small. No, let's break it down to make it smaller so we can work through it. Because it's about how you are looking at that problem in your head, because all problems can be an opportunity, but it's up to you. How are you going to manage that in your brain? And I think about, like, the crazy part is my son, who is now 22, when he was like struggling in school with depression and things like that, and we were struggling as a family trying to figure out how we maneuver through mental health. My son started watching YouTube and listening to meditation videos. He stopped eating meat. He started like watching spiritual advisors. And me being a typical Black mom, I was like, boy, what is you doing? All that woo-woo stuff. I don't, He was like, no, he would buy the crystals and he would have the incense. Listen, all these things, this boy was in high school. And I was like, here I am. Almost, he's 22, so he's been out of high school about 4 or 5 years, and here I am learning what he had already learned to try and help him out of that mental space. So it's just so crazy how things work. It takes the older people, right, our generation a little bit longer because we're so programmed to think like these old colloquialisms, right? What is it? Don't count your chickens before they hatch. Well, why not? That's what we're supposed to be.
Ain't that all we do?
Right.
You work a job for a paycheck. That's like saying don't count your paycheck before you get paid. I know I did my work.
But you know it's spent before you get your check. Right. I gotta pay this, and that. But we don't want to say how great our lives can be if we don't see the path, right? And I feel like that's what I help people do, because it's like, if you can see that you have something more for you, that makes you more excited to work towards it. Right. But I get so many women that are like, I don't see a future for myself. Well, that's why you're stuck. You're stuck because you can't see it. Right. Your brain, we communicate in words, but our brain communicates in pictures. And so you can't see it.
You can't see it. You can't be it. It's not yours, right?
So.
Wow. That's dope, man. And I love this. I feel like we're gonna have some deep conversations off of here because we got some stuff to talk about. It sucks for y'all that this is our first conversation, because this conversation probably gonna be really dope. So you might want to keep watching. So that's interesting that you said that, because my daughter is the same way. My 19-year-old, she was like, yo, I'm just focused on my peace right now. And I had started my journey into that space. But it's different when your kid is doing it, because one of the things that we have a disadvantage towards our children is the fact that they had so much information available to them, different options available to them, different perspectives. So they could look at what we said was the truth and then compare it to what these facts are online, on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, on Vine, right? Whatever was popular at the time, they had all these platforms. We didn't have that. We had encyclopedias, some dusty old encyclopedias. We had teachers and we had our grandparents. That was it. That was all the facts we could check. The news, whatever, but we had grandma, encyclopedias, and teachers.
But don't
they
have
got
young grandma.
Instagram, TikTok. Right,
don't have a young grandma that don't really know nothing, because some of us had young grandmas. I had young grandma.
Exactly. So, and especially if they giving you the advice, like, my goodness, like think about the the advice you'd give somebody if you weren't who you are right now. Ooh. Come on, man. Right. Come on. So this is why I'm like, yo, these kids, they're not our enemies. A lot of people look at generations and be like, oh, well, my generation is better than your generation, or blah, 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 whatever. Nah, man, these kids kind of got the key a little bit. And a lot of times we dismiss their research because they're not old, quote unquote, wise just yet. And some of the things that I've learned from my daughters surpass the things that I've learned in school. And I'm just like, listen, keep teaching me, man. Like, always share with me, because I always want to learn. I always want to learn, and I always want to be able to make sure that I know what you know, so that I can help you where you are, right? Because what they're getting is the benefit of what they're doing is they have so much information accessible to them. The downside of what that is that they have too much information accessible to them, and sometimes it causes analysis paralysis, or it causes confusion, or it causes depression, right? They're able to watch videos of $1 million mansions on loop for 3 hours. Like, that's gotta be, if you're not using it to manifest the life you want, you're really comparing your life to that life, and you're like, wow, I don't got nothing. That could be depressing. So you got to be careful of what they intake, but at the same time, have conversations with them about the things that they learned. And I'm glad that now you're in that space to learn what he's learning, to help him through where he's at. So that's amazing. I love that. I love that a lot.
Thank you.
I have another question for you regarding your family structure, since you brought that up. How does the support in your family, or from your family, help with your business?
Are you meaning like so it's really just my immediate family. So, in my house, it's
just your household.
So, I mean, I have 3 boys, which is funny because I work with all women, but I have 3 boys, and then I'm married to I have a wife. So my wife is very supportive of what I do. It has been a journey in our relationship, because who I am now is not who I was 12 years ago when we got together. So it's been a journey. I feel like when you grow, it takes you to have a family that is willing to grow with you and willing to trust in your vision to elevate your family. And so she and I, so many people say you can't love yourself. If you don't love yourself, you can't find anyone else. And I disagree with that, because both of us were in a wounded space when we got together. But what sustained us was that we always wanted more for each other and together. So regardless to what happened, we were always doing it together. Even when my son attempted suicide, that was a rough space for me as a mother, but it was rough for her because she wasn't his biological mother. So I got all of the attention. Are you okay? Nobody cared about her, when in actuality, she had raised this boy just like I had. So it was a tough space for us, but we worked through it. So I think that in my family, what I can say to people is, when you are looking to grow, to start a business, it's important to have that family support. And if you see it, and in fact, it's necessary. So if your family is not supporting your vision is not going to move forward until you drop off who's not supporting you. You will never move. I have so many clients that are looking to excel their business, but then they have like this dead weight of a spouse that's holding them back, and they can't get forward because this person is holding them back. So I think it's so important to make sure your family is all on board with you. Even like my son, my older son, like he's so proud of me, and that's what I want, because 3-4 years ago, he wasn't. I was just going to work because I thought that was enough. Going to work, I'm paying a bill, that's enough. But I realized that I wasn't doing anything that was going to leave a legacy for him, or anything that was mine, that I've grown from. Because you can go to work every day, but if you're not happy, what are you doing? What's your end goal for this work? And so I had to start making intentional actions that showed that I had an end goal, because that's what I wanted for him, because his life was looking like mine. He was quitting jobs. He wouldn't go to work. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? And I said, oh, me, it's me. You watching me. You out here watching me, doing me. And I don't even see that that's what's happening. So I had to change, because children, they do what you do.
Right. Absolutely. And I'm glad you spoke on all of that too, because again, it's so big. Like, people don't realize that the massive impact that either support or lack of support, or the absence of support in the conversation, period, because there's some people who don't support you, and there's some people who do support you, and there's some people who don't talk about it at all. Like, there's a gap between the two, right? And it's almost like this abyss where people can exist in. Like, they know what you do. They don't talk about it. They don't really not support you, but they definitely don't help you move the bar forward. Like, that's a dangerous place to have somebody in, because you don't even know. Like, at least if you know this person's not rocking with you, you know how to categorize them. If you know they're rocking with you, you know how to categorize them as well. But the people in the middle who just stay silent, you got to put them over there with the people who don't support you. And you got to make that tough call to really acknowledge the fact that their lack of support, even though it's not intentional, if you're looking for it, it's going to have the same effect as someone who doesn't support you. And that's the thing. So you can have conversations with those people, and those people can be converted to supporters. But if you're moving around right now and you're feeling stagnant, pay attention to the people who are silent when you're making moves. Pay attention to the people who are very quiet when you're doing something major, because it doesn't necessarily mean they don't support you in their mind. They may think they're supporting you, but they're not expressing their support. So that conversation can be had, but acknowledge the people that really, really rock with you and ride with those people, and get as many people who don't rock with you out of your circle, because like you just said, it's going to be the difference between success and failure.
It absolutely is. When I wrote my book, I lost a lot of not just friends, but actual family, because I did discuss in my book, me being molested as a child by a family member. And my family was just so afraid that I was going to say who it was that they was just like, nobody wanted to support my book. When I had my book signing, nobody came. And, for me, I didn't care. I was like, I did not mention the person's name, but it wasn't because I was afraid. It was because I felt like someone took so much of my life and I didn't have an option, rather if I gave that to them or not. And so in the moment when I did something that was big and important for me, I'm not going to give my light to someone who already tried to dim it. I'm not doing that. So in addition to that, I'm not giving it to you either, because you don't want to shine a light on me. You worried about somebody finding out about what a scumbag did. That don't make sense to me. So guess what? You're cut off too. And so that is my that's a fault of mine, but it is also I feel like that it's a good trait of mine, because I do cut people off quickly. Like, I am if I feel like you're disrupting my peace, I'm done. But that has also been a journey for me, because it has allowed me, like in some situations, I've done that with people and they didn't deserve it. And so in talking to them, I found out that I made an assumption based on me not being able to trust people in my family or as a child. It caused me to be an adult to not be able to trust other people when I'm not even giving them a chance to tell me, well, this is why I did this. I'm making an assumption. Right. So I had to learn that some things I do, I got to give people grace more than I was doing. So
Absolutely. I love that word, grace. I use that word so much. Like, I think people probably sick of me saying grace and dope. Like, those are my words. Like, yo, listen, don't.
Grace.
It's so different, because when I grew up, all grace was only associated with church.
Right.
And then when you think about grace, like, wait a minute, hold on a second, man. Grace is every single day. Like, you give grace when you stop yourself from responding to somebody in a way you would have 10 years ago, right? That's also grace. Giving yourself grace is saying, listen, I messed up today, but it's cool. I can start this thing over right now. Like, it's 7:01, whatever I did before 7:00, I'm gonna just, we gonna fix it. So making a conscious decision to forgive yourself or allow yourself permission to make the mistakes and still proceed. So I love that you use that word, because that's one of my words, and I don't even realize I'm saying it half the time until somebody tell me what I said. They're like, you kept talking about grace, but what do you mean? Like, oh shoot, I didn't realize I said that so many times to you. So but it's important that we have that, and it's important we have it for ourselves and for other people, right? People can only be the best version that they think they are at that moment. So when you talk about your book, it's interesting because I wrote a book as well, and it's kind of similar. There are some situations that happen in my family where I don't mention the people, and I don't mention the particular situation because it wasn't my situation to mention. There are stuff that happened in my family that I don't talk about in my book. I talk about how it affected me, but I don't really talk about those things because, again, like you said, number one, I'm not giving anybody attention or recognition right now in a space that this is me, right? This is me building this thing for me. And I'm not trying to point this to you. So now people going to, no, This is over here, right? The book was to get my ideas out, my thoughts out. Number two, I don't want to tell your story.
Because it is.
I'm telling my story.
Right? Come on. Hello.
So I'm gonna tell my part in your story, but I'm not
Mm-hmm.
telling your story, because now people, I'm telling my story to uplift. If I tell your story, now people got to go get your story to find out what my story is about. I don't want that. I want them to get the information I'm trying to give them from my book and my perspective, and that's it. Now, if I'm making a fiction book, of course, I'm telling all the characters and all that stuff, right? Because you want them to know the characters. But in this particular, when it comes to writing a memoir or a book about yourself and what you've experienced, giving too much power to other people is almost the same as saying they wrote your book.
That's right. What's your end goal? What's your end goal? Like you're the main character. You take up space.
Absolutely.
What you gotta do, take up space. Yeah.
All right. So I got another question for you, man. I got a lot of questions for you. So so your shirt says untriggerable.
Mm-hmm.
Now tell me about #untriggerable. Tell me what that means to you.
So my biggest struggle, I still struggle with it, is my emotions. My emotions. I'm not emotional. I'm emotional in the way of when I was younger, my mom is a very passive person, and she raised me to be the total opposite. But because she is passive, she gave me the tools to say whatever I wanted to say, but she didn't teach me how to actually use it as a superpower. So that meant that I was just going around and saying whatever I felt like saying, which meant sometimes people didn't take it in the way that I meant it. But I didn't have no clue about how I said it. I would just say it.
Right.
And so that was my emotional side of me, because then I would find myself arguing with people, or I would find myself getting an attitude, or people would be upset with me. I would find myself in situations where if people didn't think like me, what was wrong with them? So I would then be questioning them. And so I was triggered. Everything triggered me. And it was mostly because people didn't think like me. Right. And I had to understand, and people's brains are different, Keosha. Like, of course people don't think like you, because then you wouldn't be you. But it took me a long time to get here. So I like to say I am untriggerable because I wait before I respond. Whereas that was not something I always did. I would respond and then go back to how I responded. But now I'm waiting. I'm thinking about it. I'm internalizing it. I'm thinking of it from your perspective. And then I'm responding without being emotional and without assuming what you mean or what you said. And coming from a place of, I check my heart. I'll say that. I check my heart before I respond to you, to make sure that interaction between us is not a negative one for me and for you.
I like that. I like that a lot. And I like that you really kind of made a brand around something that
I guess I did, huh?
Something that you struggled with and then found out how to create a better way of going about, but also understanding that, hey, I must not be the only person with this. So let me start the conversation by putting it right here, right? Hey, what's untriggerable? And then you can get the conversation and people can realize, yo, I need help with that. Oh, well, guess who I am, right? I'm the person to help you become untriggerable. So
I bought this shirt years ago. This is from, she changed the name, Jessica Gibson. She makes all of these shirts. And I bought this shirt a while ago when I was like, yo, you cannot. I think we forget when we allow people to control us and we get so angry, we the ones who are suffering.
Right.
And I was suffering. And I said, let me buy this shirt so I can remind myself. And I still got it. Like it is a conversation piece whenever I see people and I'm like, this is why. We got to.
That's so dope, man. I love that. Mm-hmm. And I love the fact that you're very transparent with the things that plague you, but also plague so many other people, right? No, there's no one issue that's isolated to one person on this planet. And so when you think about the things that we all experience, being in a place, and I don't want to say a place of expertise because, that's a heavy burden to put on your eye, but being in a place of helping others, you don't want to pretend that you don't have issues, right? You don't want it to seem as if you're perfect and you're impeccable and all these things. Like you are also human. Like you said in your intro, you're just like them. You're just like me. and we're all just like each other. We're just at different levels of understanding how things work and how to take them apart and put them back together. So I'm just really, excited about your transparency. Your clients definitely got to be benefiting from that transparency because they get to see real life examples of the things you're helping them through. So I appreciate you being that in this space. There's so many people in this space that don't care what their impact is. They only care what their revenue is. And that's something to me that I don't love about this industry, but that's why I'm here, right? One of the reasons why I'm here is to shine light on people who are good people who would rather spend their time chasing, not chasing, but just really creating spaces where people can feel safe, right? People can feel safe, opening the door for people to feel comfortable, safe, and sometimes even feel uncomfortable while they're doing the work, but comfortable within themselves once they've done the work. So kudos to you. And I celebrate you for, like I said, for being a dope part of this industry, because there's a lot of people who are not in that way. So my next question to you is about the journey of becoming an author. Right. We talked a little bit about the book, what the book is about a little bit, but I want you to share with me the journey of becoming an author. So when you sat down to write your book, if you're like me or anybody else that wrote a book, it probably was a longer time ago than, when the book came out. So did you have that time frame where you like started writing it and then put it down, or did you just write it all at one time?
Let me tell you something about me, and it's weird. I just realized it recently. Everything I do is not the way people do it. Everything I do. And I think it's intentionally because I am like the spokesperson for telling people do it the way you want to. Just because they say you got to do it like this, girl, do it the way you want to. I woke up one day and I said, I want to write a book. I wonder how you do that. I don't know how to write a book. Everybody's writing a book and I don't know how to do that. So I posted something on Facebook. Every year it comes up, I share it. And the post said, I want to write a book. Does anybody know anything about that? So people started tagging people. And one girl tagged this lady named Jasmine Womack. And I went to her page and she was a book coach. So I was like, what's a book coach? So I just kind of went through her stuff and read her stuff. And then I sent her a message and she video chatted with me and she kind of explained to me what she did. And the name of her program was Book Boot Camp. And she teach you how to write a book in 12 weeks. I was like, Now I'm not even really good at English, period. Like my grammar is not good for me. I have the upgrade for Grammarly.com. Like I sometimes write the way I talk and it don't be right. So I'm like, but I'm gonna write a book. So I enrolled in her program. This was 2018. And it was $2,000. It was a lot of money for me. Like $2,000 was a lot. I wrote the outline to my book. I had nothing. I didn't even know what I was going to write about, to be honest. Wow. I had no idea. I didn't know what I was going to write about. We went through the court. We had a call every week and she walked you through like what you could write about, what the title could be, like the breakdown of how you write your chapters. I didn't write a single thing. She showed me how to use a recorder app. So I recorded all of my chapters on a recorder app, which was great for me because, again, I speak better than I talk. I transcribed it when I was finished. We did a end of the year thing where everybody came together in Atlanta. I hired her again because she had a publishing company. I had her publish my book. She did my cover. I had her company do my editing. I finished my book in a year.
Wow.
In 1 year, I finished my book, and I had, matter of fact, it was before 1 year because it was October. I'm coming up on the day when I had my signing, and it was in October, I think, and in less than a year. Now, my book isn't thick, right? It's probably, I like to joke and say it's like a babysitter club book, but listen, it gets straight to the point. You get it from the beginning to the end. A lot of people say they read it in one sitting. You get what I'm trying to give you, and that's what matters. So I tell people all the time, they go, oh, I can't write a long book. Well, I didn't. I think my book might be 200 pages, if that, but you still get my message. And I wrote it. And it so that it counts.
Here's the thing about that. There's no wrong way, right? There's no wrong way. And I think that was dope about you not doing things the way other people do it or the way that it's normally done. It gives you an edge. It gives you an edge because you skip certain steps that other people don't get to skip. Like, for instance, the step between deciding whether I want to do it or not. You just dropped $2,000 you're gonna do it. You're gonna do it
And
because you
that's my
sound like
motivation though.
that's yeah,
The
exactly.
money. If I'm gonna pay you some money, you gonna show me and you gonna give me everything you said on your website you was gonna give me.
Right.
Like I'm gonna go down the list. You didn't give me this. It was $2,000. I'm gonna need it all.
Right.
So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I love that because, like you said, you're coming up on a year right now. And it's like, wow, like how is this even possible that, this idea in your brain could come to fruition in this small amount of time? And these thoughts have been there your whole life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that honestly, and I always recommend this, I say, if someone has the possible thought, like even just the idea that they might want to write a book, I'm always like, yo, you should do it. You should try it. You should at least start it, because there's so much about who we are that we find out when we write those books. Like, how much did you find out about yourself when you wrote your book that you either forgot or you intentionally tried to just suppress?
It a lot while I was writing my book, going through my program, my son attempted suicide for the second time. And I was like, oh, I'm not writing this book. I was like, what business I got writing a book and I'm still going through it. I can't tell somebody how to heal. And I don't even got it all together. I was like, yeah, I'm done with this. And I remember Jasmine, she said, well, this is going to happen. She said, when you are getting ready to change the world, there are always going to be things that are going to come up against you because you're growing, you're elevating. Right. The universe needs to see if you're able to overcome these things before it lets you have what's for you. And right. Because I was really like, yeah, come on now, that's hypocritical. I can't give you a book, tell you how to do this, and here I am still struggling. So instead, I inserted a chapter that said, this is what's happening right now during me writing my book. This right. is what happened, and we still make mistakes. We gonna keep going. And that's what I did in my book. I think I called it book interrupted or something like that, because it interrupted me writing my book. And I put this chapter in it, just made it work.
That's dope. I like that a lot, man. So you understanding that the journey is ongoing. You understanding that no matter how much of what I'm able to share with y'all right now, there's so much happening even in this moment. And to put that in the book is incredible. I like that. I like that a lot. I wanna jump to a different topic, if you don't mind, real quick. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of a topic that a lot of people have experience with in one way or another. Your journey from to entrepreneurship from corporate world or from the working world. How was that transition for you? And what do you feel is a piece of advice you can share with somebody else who's looking to make that journey?
I was working from home and I lost my job. So I got a meeting invite the day before for a meeting the next day. I went to the meeting and they was like, yeah, girl, so we're eliminating your position. I was like, oh, for real? But I was happy because I hated that job. Like I hated it so much. And I worked from home, but it was just like, I got off the phone. I was like, damn, I just got fired. And I was so excited though. Like I didn't know what I was going to do. And I ended up, somebody started talking to me about virtual assistant. And I was like, what's that? And I had a friend that I met here in Buffalo and she moved away. She gave me her $2,000 virtual assistant program and was like, girl, look at it and see if you can figure it out. And I was like, okay. That's what I was doing while I was at home. I became a virtual assistant. I hired, so I'm all about hiring people. And I tell people, like, I am a firm believer in, I would rather have my time. I pay you to teach me something because time is more important to me than figuring out. And I'm a Googleologist. I can find anything.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Googleologist. That's what I am. Yeah, I could Google anything. I could find it. Don't you worry. But I need my time. So I'm going to pay you to teach me. I paid someone. And before I knew it, in less than 2 months, I had 10 clients. And I was a crazy person. It drove me, like I felt like I worked more hours in entrepreneurship than I did at my real job. It was a lot going on. And I realized that it was about my mindset. I was making the money, so it didn't matter that I was making the money. I didn't have the mindset to be a leader. And people forget that as an entrepreneur, you're a CEO, you're a leader. We get so many people that's like, yeah, I'm a boss, I'm an entrepreneur. No, girl, you a leader. And leaders do certain things and leaders operate certain ways. You just not out here selling bundles. You a CEO and I'm gonna need you to act like one. I didn't know how to do that. and it was stressful. But when I worked on my mindset, I started attracting clients that were for me, opposed to just attracting people to make money from a scarcity mindset.
Right.
So the transition to entrepreneurship is a mindset shift. That's what it is. It's a mindset shift to have faith in yourself, opposed to having faith in an employer to get a check. You gotta love yourself and put yourself out there. It was just hard. And I think people don't realize how hard it is. They just see, like, I don't know, what you do on Facebook. I have people come to me all the time, girl, can you help me with my content? And I'm like, okay, I love creating social media content. They sit with me for 1 hour, they be like, yeah, this is hard. I didn't realize you was doing all of this. And this is why I think so many people fall off. They don't realize that it's not easy. It's supposed to test you. If you want something more than what you have right now, you have to be tested. Like, that's why it's a goal, because you have to be more than who you are now. And I tell people all the time, you reach your goal. You have a goal in mind. Now you need to think of, who do you have to embody to get to that goal? Because that's the journey. You can't be who you are right now and think you're going to start making $1 million, because you don't know how to manage that at this moment. Who do you need to be? So it was about me embodying who I wanted to be again, who I didn't want to be, but who do I want to be? Because we focus on what we don't want. I don't want to do this and I don't want to do that.
Right.
All you telling your brain is that you want more. What do you want? That's the problem with a lot of people. They don't know.
Wow. And that's so important. And it's so relevant, because what you're doing is you're really kind of like reshaping the whole process of what you're doing. Like you said, you got to become something different. Hold on 1 second, okay? So I think that's really important, again, to just really know, like, when you transition out of that space, you're leaving a comfort that is really a false sense of comfort in a way. If you feel like there's more for your life and there's more that you can do or more that you can build, that comfort is very, you know what I mean? It's very temporary, and it only provides you comfort on payday. Nothing about the job itself really provides you with comfort, because it's like the whole time you're like, man, this ain't, how I'm gonna leave this behind to my kids? How am I gonna leave? I can't pass down my 401k. I can't pass down my desk at this cubicle that I'm sitting in right now. But I can pass down an idea that I turned into a business and made that business grow. And I can fail at a couple businesses before I get to the one that's gonna work and pass that one down. But if I'm only here, how can I leave anything behind, right? We talk about legacy, and everyone talks about legacy and preparing for the future, but preparing for the future as a person who has ideas in their brain, it looks like you exploring those ideas. So I'm glad that I'm glad you got fired. I'm glad they eliminated your position.
Hated that job. I hated that job. Do you hear me? And when I tell people I got fired, I'm like, it was just so weird, because I didn't know it was coming. I didn't know anything. And afterwards, I just sat there. Like, I was like, what am I supposed to do now? I haven't not worked in my whole life. I think I've been working. I became a mother at 19. So I've been working since I was 18 years old, nonstop. And so I was like, I don't know what to do. What am I supposed to do now? So you're right. Like, you have to explore what you can leave for your kids. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be an entrepreneur. It doesn't have to be you running a business, but it should be something that requires you to grow, requires you to elevate. And a lot of people don't realize this. It's just not about you leaving a legacy, right? It's about you changing that DNA for your family structure. Because when I heal, I pass that along to my children. I fix their DNA at a cellular level. They pass that on. So we are breaking generational curses. It's not just about us.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
I think exploring what else you can have besides just sitting in one spot is important, for sure.
Very true. Very, very, very true. And I love that. So I got a couple questions for you to kind of rapid fire right now. We're coming up on that part of the show where I just dive in, right? So I'm not going to tell you the number of questions, because I always lie. And I always say it's 3, but then it'd be 6. So first question is, if you can give somebody, and not just an entrepreneur or anybody like that, anybody that's just having a hard time right now, if you could just give one general piece of advice to somebody who's struggling with anything in this moment, particularly, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that they have survived 100% of the days that they thought they couldn't, so they can keep going.
I like that. I like that. Okay, cool, cool, cool. One for one. Got it. All right. So number two, um, if you could be anything, let me reframe this real quick. If someone gave you $1 million right now, right,
Mhm.
and said you can only build something in your specific field, what would you build? You had to use the whole million on that though.
I would build a co-working space for women only. No offense, but I think women rule the world. I think we rule the world, but I think we have the biggest struggles. And I think that if we learn to work together, man, this world would be an amazing place. Just mothers being mothers to sons. Like, I just think that women, we have so much to learn and can do so much together. So I would build a co-working space so we can feed off of ideas for each other.
I like that. I like that a lot. So my next question to you is, if you could be any cartoon character from any generation, who would it be and why?
Okay, listen, so I didn't watch cartoons as a kid. I've been grown. I tell people all the time, I've been grown all my life. So
Oh my, not I've been growing all my life.
all my life I've been grown. So I've hung with the adults my whole life, seriously. And that's why I think I have such a childlike spirit as an adult. But if I could, a superhero, I would be Catwoman. Let me think. If I think about cartoon characters,
You 2 for 2 so far. I want you to strike out on this one.
cartoon characters, man, I don't know. I'm sitting here, can't even think of no cartoons I done watched.
Let me come back to it.
Yeah, let's come back to that.
All right, cool. So
Hmm.
the next question I have for you is this, and it's not really a question. This is kind of the part of the show where I just let you tell people how to find you, what you got going on, and what you're building. So as you scour your brain for the one cartoon you've watched in your whole life, I want you to share with people how they can contact you, all the ways, all the stuff. Let them know what's going on with you.
So you can follow me on Instagram at Keosha Mindset Life Coach. I have my website is K Hinson Virtual Services. I will be hosting. I host a vision board party every year. This year it's going to be a little bit different, just because I know a little bit more. So it's going to be a little bit different, very much so impactful though. But that's going to be November 12th. So I have that information on my website. I will be coming out with my workbook. So I have a workbook that I came out with before, Adjusting My Crown, but now I have a new one that will be on pre-sale. I'm super excited about it. So I'll be sharing that. And it also comes with growth cards. So the cards are questions that you ask yourself that helps you to grow into the person you want to be. Oftentimes we are stuck because we don't really know who we are or what we want, because we haven't taken the time to kind of have a conversation with ourselves. So the growth cards are really about you having a conversation. I do have my single sessions and then my 8-week coaching program, but I also offer free coaching sessions. So if you are curious to know what it looks like to work with a life coach, you can always DM me and I'll provide you with the link, but it's also on my website where you can book a free session.
There it is. Boom. Yeah, I heard it first here. Well, not first, but you heard it first here. I'm gonna say that anyway. You heard it first here from Keosha Hinson, one of the dopest people that like I said, again, we met recently, and digesting her content and just really just going through and doing the research to make sure she was a good fit for the show. I found that she was a dope person. And so with that being said, I really just want to know your cartoon.
Okay, my cartoon. I would be one of the Smurfs.
Oh,
I would be one of the Smurfs. Let me tell you why. I love this. I love the Smurfs as a kid. Now I remember that because they're different. And I think so often we get in this space where we want to be like everybody else, right? My younger son, he's 4, he's autistic, and he has really challenged me to look at life differently because we live in his world. Having older kids, I have been that mom that's like, you gonna do this and you gonna do that. But baby, my 4-year-old, he don't play. His name is King and he is the king. And you do what he says do. So I have learned that being different in the world is where it's at. being your own self, being who you are. And then, you know, we get so upset when people copy off of us, but I don't get upset. Copy off of me, girl, because the world needs more of me. And so if you can take the best pieces of me and share it with your people, then the world is a better place. Let's do it. So I would be a Smurf.
I like that. I like that a lot. I'm going to ask you though. That wouldn't be me if I didn't ask you which Smurf would you be though.
Well, I mean, it was only one girl Smurf, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I would be her. Because, I mean, girls make the world go round.
That was a nice save right there. You lucked out on that shit. Yeah, that's so dope. I appreciate you for stopping into the show today. I really, really, really appreciate your vibe and what you bring to the world. Everybody has their sectors, right, and their spaces that they're working hard to really infiltrate to change their part of the world, and in doing so, changing the whole world. So I appreciate you just being who you are, being authentic, being transparent, but also being able to put the work in to do this. So I appreciate you. I look forward to our conversations. I look forward to connecting with you and seeing how I can be of assistance to you and your platform and what you're building. And again, thank you for just coming on the show today and sharing your information, letting people know that if they're dealing with the things that you've spoken about, you know, they have a resource to contact to really help them change their lives. So again, a kudos to you. And to everybody watching right now, go follow her. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on this channel. Make sure that you are following me because I drop, you know, tips and different pieces of information all the time. And I really just want, again, just like Keosha is doing, we're changing the world in our sector. So let's continue to do that. Let's continue to be great and upholding a higher standard of what we represent. So as always, y'all, be dope and be great. Peace.
Bye.